Yo, yo, yo. You sturdy.
Most modern and most secure detention centers in
Craziest prison
France.
heist.
Hundreds of guards, massive 17-foot walls lined with barbed wire,
We
and
got the
armored
craziest
doors.
prison
The
escape
courtyards
of
are
all
covered
time.
with anti-helicopter netting. On all 4 watchtowers, snipers with assault rifles stand at the ready. In solitary confinement cell 207, inmate number 00-10189 waits to be escorted to a visiting room. He is the most heavily guarded prisoner in the country. He was involved in at least 30 robberies, some including hostages, one involving a cash and transit heist that led to the death of a police officer. Twice, he slipped away from the police right at the scene of the crime. And 5 years ago, in 2013, he pulled off a spectacular escape from another high-security prison, using a smuggled gun and explosives to blast his way out. 2 guards unlock his cell to pat him down. They do find something suspicious, but it's just a pack of gum. The guards like him, despite his staggering record of high-stakes crimes. He's easygoing, funny, and likable. It's almost like he's perfectly comfortable here, behind bars. 20 miles away, 65-year-old flight instructor Stefan Bai welcomes 2 new students, Frédéric and Julien, father and son. They're both hyped for their flight. They say they just want to tag along and watch him fly, not pilot themselves, but they do request it to be on board the Alouette 2, a vintage collector's model from the 1950s. The pair have been marveling at it because it just looks so pretty. Something feels sketchy. Stefan will later recall that he thought they were wearing wigs. But hey, money is money, right? They pay 500 euros in cash up front. Back in jail, the prisoner is escorted to the visitors block for high-risk inmates. It's situated as far away from the prison entrance as possible. Prison management has been on edge for a while, noticing a change in the inmate's behavior. He's received more visits and seemed to be sending coded messages during phone calls. His casual vibe with the guards could be a tactic to extract useful intel. A couple of days ago, a drone was spotted scouting the facility from above. Stefan is waiting for his students on an open field. He has landed on the clearing because they said they needed to stop to pee. They stepped out and disappeared behind some trees. When they return, they're armed. They claim to know his family and his home address. They say they have been watching him for months, and that their accomplices are waiting at his house as they speak. If he doesn't do exactly as they say, his family dies. They'll tell him where to fly next. On the visitor side of booth number 50, the inmate's older brother is waiting to see his sibling. He has no idea that his little brother is about to pull off the most spectacular prison break in French history. In 1978, a suburb near Paris. This is 6-year-old Redouane. He's still in kindergarten, browsing through a newly opened store with his brother, who's 2 years older than him. There's not a single thing in this shop the two could afford. Their parents are Algerian immigrants. The father works in a factory, the mother cleans houses. At home, the boys shared a cramped 3-room apartment with 9 other siblings. The social housing block is surrounded by wealthy suburbs
What's
full
going
of
on?
wealthy
There's a
French
couple
kids.
people in here.
Redouane and his brother do not fit the
Some
mold,
in the chat. Chat
and the
it up.
store detective makes sure they know it. He calls them petite merguez, a racial slur for Algerian immigrants. But other than that, he doesn't really pay attention to them. Out in the parking lot, the brothers divide up their haul. It's Redouane's first theft ever. A couple of weeks later, he gets caught. His parents are furious, and his father whips him 20 times with a belt. His mother makes him promise he will never steal.
That nigga said his father whipped him 20 times with a belt. Oh, nah. Nah, you wildin'. His father whipped him 20 times
A
with a
couple
belt.
of weeks later, he gets caught. His parents are furious, and his father whips him 20 times with a belt. His
Dang.
mother makes him promise he will never steal again.
For stealing though?
Around this time, Redouane discovers the world
I
of
was
film,
taking out the Dollar
especially French
Trees.
crime
I was
thrillers
taking
and
out
American gangster movies.
I ain't getting
He
no
watches
ass
them on
whooping for
repeat,
that.
memorizes entire scenes, and acts them out at home for his family. By his teens, stealing isn't just survival anymore. It's a way of life. He and his friends swipe TVs, stereos, VCRs, car radios, and computers. They use the money to buy Adidas sneakers and flashy tracksuits. But more than anything, they go to the movies. Again and again. Then, at 18 years old, Redouane commits his first bank robbery. He walks in armed, holds the bank employee at gunpoint, and threatens her with a line straight from the French crime film, Marine. "Shut up. Do what I tell you. I've got nothing against you. I only want the money. Think of your children." After the robbery, he simply goes back to school and studies for his high school exams. There's no one to scold him anymore at home. His father has moved back to Algeria, and his mother is dying of leukemia. He'll later write in his autobiography that, from that moment on, he stopped caring. Redouane Faïd's crimes are getting bigger, and they seem to be directly inspired by American action films. During a heist, he and his crew end up taking a bank director and his family hostage. They are wearing rubber masks with the faces of famous politicians, just like Patrick Swayze in Point Break. Redouane even delivers a line from the movie when they leave the scene.
"Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and please don't forget to vote!"
In another hostage situation 2 years later, Faïd and his men show up in sharp black suits in homage to Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. They even adopt the thing with the color-coded aliases.
Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink.
But this time the job goes sideways and they have to flee from the cops, just like in the movie. However, all these spectacular crimes still don't seem enough for Faïd. One of his all-time favorite gangster films is Michael Mann's Heat, and after watching it over and over again, he sets himself a new goal: the holy grail of robbery, armored trucks. An industrial area on the outskirts of Paris, Faïd is behind the wheel of a Renault. He spots his target, a 6-ton armored truck with 3 armed guards inside, and slams his car straight into it. Within seconds, 2 more cars appear, blocking the truck from the front and back. 5 men in hockey masks jump out, AK-47s in hand, just like in the movie Heat. They surround the truck, moving fast. One of them slaps an explosive-looking package onto the windshield. The guards step out and surrender. Faïd and his crew start emptying the truck, but there's a problem. It's simply too much cash. Moving the money out takes way too long. After just 3 minutes, police are on the scene. Gunfire erupts. Faïd takes a bullet to the shoulder. He does manage to escape with his crew, but he has lost blood on the crime scene. Now the police have his DNA and start to investigate his identity. And for a second time, the hijackers have 2 more men waiting on the ground. They haul large black duffel bags into the helicopter. One of them climbs in, all dressed in black, hood pulled over his head. Stefan is held at gunpoint the entire time. Now he is ordered to take off again. He flips the ignition switches and presses the starter, but nothing happens. The kidnappers think he's trying to outsmart them and start freaking out. They beat and threaten him. If he doesn't do as they say, his family dies. Stefan manages to convince them that he really needs to step out to check the wiring. Finally, the engine roars back to life. They take off again. The hijackers are well prepared. The duffel bags are packed with tear gas, smoke grenades, masks, AK-47s, and an angle grinder. And so the heli thunders towards the high-security prison, where Redouane Faïd is sitting calmly in visiting room 50, chatting away with his older brother. Hands down, this really is the kind of stuff you'd expect in a Hollywood blockbuster. But say you're in the US and can't stream this French crime thriller due to geo-restrictions. Enter Cyber...
That was mad smooth, bro. That was mad smooth.
enters a room to prepare it for the next guest. She has no idea she is not alone. Redouane Faïd has been hiding there for over 3 hours. Outside, the police are searching for him across the entire city. A few hours earlier, Faïd was arrested on a train heading from Germany to France. German federal police took him into custody. He had been hiding abroad for months. But when the officers escort him off the train, he manages to break free. He runs straight across the tracks to shake the cops. A train roars in and blocks the officers from following. He jumps several meters down and twists his ankle, so now he's limping. Somehow, he makes it to the back entrance of the Move and Pick hotel and sneaks inside. He finds several open doors, since the cleaning staff are still working. He needs to get out of here somehow. He thinks about calling a contact in Strasbourg, but he doesn't have a phone, so what now? There's a payphone right outside the hotel, but he also doesn't have any coins. He calmly approaches the receptionist to ask if she can give him some change for a bill. She places the coins in front of him, which leads to another problem. His hands are still cuffed. What if she notices and calls the police? Faid keeps it cool, acts like he's casually reading a promo poster behind the desk. The moment the receptionist turns away, he quickly scoops up the coins. The first call fails, and he disappears onto the hotel rooftop to hide for a couple of hours. He tries again, turns around, and finds himself surrounded by 20 police officers.
Damn.
The next day, Faid is at the hospital with 2 officers to have his ankle checked. He seems to be in serious pain, but that's just an act. In a fraction of a second, he drops his crutches and snatches a gun from one of the officers. He trained in Krav Maga during his time in Israel, a super efficient military combat technique designed for fast defense and brutal disarmament. Before the second officer can react, Faid drives his elbow into his face. The officer drops and Faid takes his gun too. Then he runs, as fast as he can, for the second time in 24 hours. You would think a guy like that would be watched extra closely in jail. At 11:18 a.m., this prison guard hears a strange noise. A low hum or buzzing sound coming from outside. To her, it sounds like a leaf blower. Weird, she thinks. The gardeners are not supposed to work on Sundays. Well, it's not a leaf blower. But the facility is prepared for this. This sentinel receives an urgent order over the radio: unseal. The same thing happens on other watchtowers. Each one is equipped with a special case. The guard has to break the seal to open it. Inside is an HK-G36 assault rifle. He grabs it and takes aim. The helicopter just keeps descending. The prison yards are covered with anti-helicopter netting. Flying in here would be a suicide mission. But this is not a random helicopter. It's a 60-year-old vintage model, just small enough to slip through this unsecured gap in the last one of the prison yards. Also, this is not a regular landing. In fact, they're not touching down at all. Redouane Faid must have known somehow that prison guards are not allowed to shoot at a flying helicopter. There's a proper protocol for this. And maybe he also knew that Stéphane Baye is one of the few pilots in all of France who are skilled enough to pull this off, to keep this specific type of vintage heli steady enough while hovering above the ground. Investigators will later discover that Faid had been writing letters to Stéphane's stepdaughter for 2 entire years. And this friendship was not Faid's only connection to the outside world, because at this point, Redouane Faid was already a star. October 2010, 12 years after his escape in Basel, 8 years before his helicopter prison break, Redouane Faid sits in a French talk show.
Gangster, braqueur, voyou, voleur, appelez ça comme vous voulez, il revendique à peu près tous ces mots-là. Bonjour Redouane Faid.
Bonjour.
Les banques, vous en avez braqué combien en tout?
Alors, officiellement, j'en ai braqué qu'une, puisque j'étais condamné que pour une banque. On m'a soupçonné d'en avoir braqué une trentaine, mais bon, ça, c'est que des dires et des racontards.
He's a welcome guest at the time, a bit of a sensation even. Redouane Faid has written a book about his cinematic crimes, so now he's making the rounds on French TV to promote it.
C'est terrible de dire ça, mais le cinéma était pour moi un mode d'emploi pour braquer.
Et on voyait ça un petit peu, l'attaque de fourgon blindé en ligne de mire. Pourquoi? Parce que quand tu attaques un fourgon blindé, c'est le top des tops.
The caption on screen reads, former gangster. Well, not so long ago, he was anything but. In late 1998, 3 months after his escape in Basel, Faid was caught and sentenced to 18 years in jail for armed robbery. He was granted parole for good behavior after just under 9 years. Now he presents himself as a changed man, as someone who has learned his lesson.
La vie de bandit, c'est que de la vie de merde. Vous savez, vous faites souffrir tout le monde. Quand vous allez en prison, c'est une sanction carrément qui est collective parce que votre famille, votre femme, vos enfants, vos frères, vos sœurs, vos parents, tout le monde paye.
He got married. His brother has landed him an office job. He appears to be taking it easy now. At one point, he attends a film event where Michael Mann is physically present, the director of Heat, the very film that inspired his biggest heist.
Moi, personnellement, je suis un ancien gangster. Malheureusement, je m'en vante pas. Je viens de faire une dizaine d'années de prison, j'ai attaqué des fourgons blindés, des bijouteries, des banques, monsieur Toubiana, je pense. Et je leur ai répondu que non, j'avais un conseiller technique, un prof de fac, une sorte de mentor, et il s'appelle Michael Mann. Alors ma question en fait, elle est simple, c'est est-ce qu'il a conscience qu'il y ait des gangsters qui puissent s'inspirer de son cinéma? Parce que moi ça m'est arrivé.
Fayed addresses Mann directly. Michael Mann looks amused, but also a bit uncomfortable. He doesn't know what to say.
Oh, thank you for that. I don't know how to respond.
In another talk show stint, Fayed is asked if he thinks he could ever relapse.
Ah non, moi mes démons, vous savez, hein, ils sont morts, ils sont pas endormis.
That's a bold-faced lie, because at this point, he's already back to committing crimes. And not just petty theft, but a crime so shocking it will shake the entire country. May 20th, 2010, Créteil, a suburb southeast of downtown Paris. Two officers are on routine patrol, Thierry M. and his partner Aurélien Fouquet. Fouquet is 26 years old. She became a mother just a year ago. For them, it's just another day on the job. But then they get a call from the National Police. They're told to head to the A4 highway exit. Some criminals are on the run in a white van. They pull up at an intersection with flashing lights and blaring sirens. They have no idea what they're about to get into. These men had a plan to rob an armored cash truck carrying 16 million euros. But 30 minutes ago, a routine traffic stop turned their heist into a high-speed, all-out chase with the police. Now they've crashed and need a new getaway car. But at that exact moment, the two patrol officers arrive. The gang doesn't hesitate to open fire. The windshield of the patrol car alone is pierced by 16 bullets. Fouquet is hit multiple times. The gunmen flee. Fouquet is rushed to the hospital, and by the end of the day, she is dead. The murder of Aurélien Fouquet sends shockwaves throughout the entire country. At her funeral, thousands of police officers stand in mourning. Among them is French President Nicolas Sarkozy. He posthumously awards her a Medal of Honor and delivers a promise. He will do everything it takes to find out who did it.
Les meurtriers d'Aurélie Fouquet, je le dis devant son cercueil, seront punis avec la sévérité qu'exige l'ignominie de leur crime.
Redouane Faïd feels safe. So safe he keeps telling his gangster stories on camera. Here he is in a documentary. The film recounts how Fouquet was gunned down, and then Redouane Faïd appears, not as a suspect, not as a fugitive, but as an expert on this kind of heist. At the time, the filmmakers had no idea that the man sitting in front of them had a part in the killing of Aurélien Fouquet. The failed attack on the armored cash truck has Faïd's signature all over it, but he has an airtight alibi, and he swears he was not involved. But investigators keep digging and eventually find compelling surveillance footage. A security camera has caught Faïd inside the white van used by the criminals. Faïd was not on the scene when the shots were fired, but police gather enough evidence to pin him down as the mastermind behind the operation. After 1 year on the run, Faïd is captured. Again, and he goes straight back to prison. Whether you're invited to a talk show or heading out on a date, there are moments when you want to look your best. But shaving is often a struggle. Many men experience razor burns and get nervous about shaving right ahead of an important event. That's why Henson set out to fix shaving with real precision. They're experts in machining parts for aerospace projects, and they conducted pioneering research on what really makes for a good and skin-friendly shave. The result is just beautiful, a sleek and long-lasting aluminum razor with aerospace-level precision. Two inmates are taking out the trash, accompanied by a prison guard. Suddenly, they see a helicopter in the courtyard next to them. They wonder if it could be firefighters. The unarmed warden bolts into a nearby office, hiding behind bulletproof glass. Meanwhile, the two prisoners are about to witness Redouane Faïd's spectacular prison escape up close. One of the three men stays with Stéphane, the pilot, and continues to press a gun to his head. The other two jump out. They are masked and wearing bulletproof vests beneath their clothes. Each of them carries an AK-47. They've just landed in the honored courtyard. Prisoners do not have access here. It's only used when inmates enter or leave the facility. That's why nobody thought anti-helicopter cables were needed here. The man in green runs towards a reinforced white door. He carries an angle grinder with a 14-inch 35cm blade. His partner sets off 3 smoke grenades, releasing thick white smoke. The helicopter's spinning blades turn it into a roaring chaos, until the entire courtyard is engulfed, a complete whiteout. The sound of the cutting angle screeches through the entire prison. Faïd knows what that means. it's time. By now, it's clear to everyone that nobody here is blowing leaves. The blade of the grinder slices through the locking doors. Clean, precise. 40 seconds is all it takes. The man in green can just push the door open and step inside. The guards slowly realize what's happening, but they're not carrying firearms and are unable to interfere. One of them sticks to protocol and calls the Civil Aviation Authority. They don't understand what's happening. Another calls the standard line for police emergencies and gets put on hold. A third contacts the local police, but the officer on the other end thinks it's a prank. The sentinels on the 4 watchtowers are the only ones carrying firearms, but they can't see the helicopter because their view is blocked by other buildings. And they're not allowed to fire at a flying aircraft anyway. Total, utter chaos. By now, Fayid's brother knows exactly what's going on. He's furious. He thought his brother was ready to change. And now this, another escape. He just can't help himself. Fayid's accomplice has already cut his way through several locks. And now he has reached the door to visiting room 50, where Redouane Fayid is waiting. The angle grinder slices through the metal. The door is open. Fayid has been waiting for this. He storms out and rushes down a long corridor, followed by the man in green. His brother is left behind, frozen and stunned. At 11:28 a.m., Redouane Fayid steps into the prison courtyard, 10 minutes after the helicopter got there. He sees the 2 inmates that have taken out the trash, brings his right hand to his temple, and gives them an Air Force salute. Then he climbs into the helicopter. Dozens of inmates stand pressed against the bars of their cells to watch. As the helicopter lifts off, the entire prison erupts into applause. It's almost like a movie scene.
A French gangster who broke out of jail by hijacking a helicopter.
A notorious gangster is on the run again.
Criminal who is a big movie fan. He has broken out of prison twice
and
now.
You can just about
20. Authorities take extreme security measures, including a no-fly zone above the courthouse. The court cites a psychiatric assessment describing him as a social predator and gifted at manipulation. He uses his charm and intelligence to control others and get what he wants. Fayid himself says that for him,
On May 8, 2021, a woman named Malie Perales was driving down the Packer Drive Northeast Road alongside the Rogue River in Belmont, Michigan. She and her 2 roommates were on their way back after a night out, and they were all in a cheerful mood. However, their smiles quickly vanished as they stumbled onto a horrifying scene. At around 2:30 a.m., while driving near the Rogue Hollow Court, one of the passengers spotted a strange figure lurking by the side of the road. This encounter was extremely terrifying, but it also sparked the group's curiosity, and after some deliberation, they decided to turn around, and this is what they then came across.
What the
Stop. No,
Stop.
I'm not. I'm not. No.
Oh,
Hell no.
hell no.
Oh. They were soaked.
They saw what looked like a young woman drenched from head to toe as if she had just crawled out of the nearby river. She also looked like she was crying, banging her head on the road and waving for help. Malie posted the video of this encounter on TikTok and it instantly went viral, leading people to come up with all sorts of far-fetched theories about ghosts, spirits, etc. However, as wild as the theories got, Malie later posted several videos shutting them down and revealing what really happened. According to her, they kept circling back and driving past the disturbed woman several times after recording the first video to make sure she was okay. While none of them had the nerve to get out of the car and approach her, they did call the cops and waited nearby until help arrived. The woman was then taken to a nearby hospital where she was treated for cold exposure. As it turns out, she somehow fell into the Rogue River from the east side and swam across it onto the road.
Yep, she had to have come up out of the water. Yep, there's a dig spot there. So she came up from down there. That's had to have been why she was so wet. This was the spot that she had left. I don't know why or what was going on.
After regaining some composure, she also revealed that the woman was from Kalamazoo, a town that's over 60 miles from where she was found. However, she had no recollection of how she got to Belmont and fell in a river so far away from home. From what we know, she was most likely experiencing a severe mental break where her memory gap was caused by a rare condition known as fugue state, something we covered in our previous video on the most disturbing mental disorders. For those who don't know, a fugue state is a rare condition where a person suddenly loses their memory and starts acting like someone else. They might wander off, travel long distances, or do things completely out of character without realizing anything is wrong. It's usually triggered by extreme stress or trauma, and once it's over, the person often has no memory of what happened. And while this condition is quite rare, all the signs suggest that's exactly what happened to this mysterious woman from Kalamazoo, especially since the authorities later found her car parked behind a random house just east of the river. She likely drove to that neighborhood on her own but had zero memory of doing so, which fits perfectly with the known symptoms of fugue state. Malie also shared her video in a local Facebook group hoping to find more answers about what went down. Unfortunately, the responses she received weren't as helpful as she'd hoped, since most people in the neighborhood believe the screaming and noises were just the sounds of a wild animal, like a coyote. But there were a few responses that deepened the mystery. Like this one person who remembered meeting her earlier that same night, stating, "Saw this person between Van Dam and Packer Woods around 10:15 p.m. Friday. Asked her if she needed help, to which she responded no." Another person also mentioned hearing about a woman walking into his neighbor's house, yelling hello 3 times and then leaving on her own. And while this added further evidence supporting the fugue state theory, these responses still left a key question unanswered. Who was she? Malie tried to contact both the police and the hospital for answers, but despite her insistence, both the police officers and the hospital staff refused to reveal her real name. That said, we still have enough information to make an educated guess. Based on everything I could uncover, the mysterious woman in this unsettling video was most likely Mei Zhou. She was a 28-year-old Chinese woman.
Oh shit, this shit come out tonight. Give me one